the world as we know it is dying. It's going down. And I've said this before. Eventually, there's going to be spheres of influence and spheres of power. The Europeans will have their own sphere of power, led by the Germans. The Japanese will have their own sphere of power in Northeast Asia. The Chinese will have their own sphere of influence. The Turks will have their own sphere of influence. And you already see this sort of thing happening where the Europeans are talking more and more about being autonomous, being independent of American power, American control. And you already see it in Austria, for example. I mean, the Nazis got the most votes. The Freedom Party did. I remember the last time the Freedom Party got a serious electoral victory. They were in a coalition with the People's Party, the Austrian People's Party, which was led by Sebastian Kurz. And the People's Party is a right-wing party in Austria that's not as crazy as the Freedom Party. The Freedom Party is actually more far-right than the People's Party. But you look at the last election that Austria has had, the one that happened last week, the Freedom Party, which is the real hardcore far-right party in Austria, they got 29% of the vote. They got the majority of the votes in Austria's last election. And these are people who they want to break away from the American empire. And you see it. You see it happening right before our eyes. You see it. It's history repeating itself. You see people who are basically Nazis, far right, one of the members of the Freedom Party, his name is Andreas Molzer. Andreas Molzer has literally said, let's bring back the Reich. He doesn't say Third Reich, but he says the Reich. Let's bring back the Reich. And he says, let's reunite Germany and Austria. Now, the last time the Germans tried to reunite Austria and Germany, it was under Adolf Hitler. It's pretty scary what you see happening nowadays. It is. It's pretty scary. The world is completely changing. By changing, it's going back. That's what's happening right now. You're seeing a return back to ultranationalism, back to Nazism, back to Ottomanism in the case of Turkey. It's just going back, going back, going back. That's what's happening. You're just seeing constant circling, a return to history. And there's that verse in the Old Testament. There's nothing new under the sun. All the things that happened in the past will happen again. That's in the Bible. This is the Word of God. And God is telling us that history works in circles. History doesn't work in a linear fashion. God is telling us that society works in a circular way, a circular fashion. That's what we see happening. And people just don't believe me. They say, oh, no, these aren't Nazis. Nazis was back in the 1930s, blah, blah, blah. No, they're Nazis. They've just remarketed themselves in a different way. They've just repackaged themselves in a different way, but it's the same thing. And you see it in Europe with the rise of the Freedom Party, AfD in Germany, Freedom Party in Austria. You're seeing it all over. Catalonian separatism. The whole thing. It's absolutely surreal to see what's happening in the world. What's so disturbing about all this stuff is you don't really find right-wing figureheads or even conservative figureheads warning people about this stuff. You don't see it happening. Yeah, you don't see it happening. You just see conservatives talking about, well, I'm so scared. The world is becoming liberal, and the world is going woke, and woke is what I'm so scared of. And wokeism is not my biggest worry. Maybe I'll be wrong in the future. Maybe I'll be proven to be wrong. But wokeism is not. It's not the biggest threat. in my opinion. I think wokeism is I can't really prove this. Maybe one day I'll spend like a month researching the whole thing, and maybe I'll find the roots of wokeism. Like, where does it really come from? But wokeism to me is just it's a weapon of mass distraction. Why do I say that? Because wokeism is basically taking it's basically taking liberal or left-wing rhetoric and amplifying it in its most to its most extreme face, to the point where it becomes ridiculous. And when something is amplified to look ridiculous, it becomes an easy target. It becomes a punching bag. So now everything is the woke left, the woke, the woke, the woke, the woke. And if you try to bring up something else and say, guys, take a look at this, you guys are hitting an easy target. Wokeism is an easy target. It's such an easy target. It makes you wonder if it's even coming from a real place. It makes you question if it's even coming from an organic source. It makes you wonder if it's actually just an artificial distraction made up to make us all riled up so that we can attack something and feel like we're, in the culture war. We're winning in the culture war. But to me, it just seems like a giant distraction, and it just seems fake. Like, for example, I remember years ago, there was this video that went viral on all over the internet, Twitter, YouTube, the whole thing. And it was this black girl in with the glasses, and she had the typical far left appearance that conservatives love to show, to say, look how stupid these people look. But she looked crazy, this woman. I mean, she looked completely out of her mind. And I remember she was doing this presentation, and the presentation was just so ridiculous. Like, there was nothing sophisticated about it. There was nothing intelligent about it at all. It was just her in what looked to be a room that you would rent out to give talks in a hotel building. And she had this big, those, I don't know what you call them. It's like the big paper. She had this canvas. Those canvases that are made up of a whole bunch of pages, and then you turn the big page, and then you write out your little presentation. It was one of those. And she writes on the canvas, "White people are demons." Like, white people are demons, and they're devils, and and there's people in the audience. There's like 20 people in the audience, 25 people in the audience. And the whole thing just looks fake. Who the hell is this person? Where did she come from? Who hired her? I mean, what's going on? Like, they're demons. White people are devils, demons, this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking, how could anyone have organized this thinking that this is actually helpful or serious or organized or intelligent or logical? There's no way that any human being thought that this was a good idea. I mean, how does this happen? How does this happen? And I really, really thought about it. It just looks fake. But it's an easy target. It's an easy target. Look, real racism on the left, saying white people are demons, blah, 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 blah. And there's a proverb that I remember hearing years ago that I really like to go by. And it goes something like, it's not the devil that you know, it's the devil that you don't know. It's the devil is in the details. And if something is too easy to attack, I tend to stay away. Unless it's the Pope. The Pope is fun to attack. Because I love talking about, the most holy cope of Rome. But if something is just too obvious, too easy, makes you wonder what's going on here. Because it's like a strategy in a war. A lot of times you read about these battles where the enemy is made to think that he is being victorious, that he's advancing, only to realize that he's been hoodwinked and now he's about to be destroyed. It's kind of like the old Soviet tactic of dragging your enemy into your territory, making him think that he's conquering your territory, when in reality, he's just getting farther and farther away from his logistics line, and now he's cut off from supplies, and he's in the middle of enemy territory, and he's about to be vanquished. This is what the Soviets did to the Poles back in the 1920s. That's how they did. They beat the Poles when the Poles thought they were taking over Ukraine. Poland, learn your lesson from the past. You're not going to win against Russia. So that's how I see the whole woke thing. It's like, it just seems fake. That's why I don't really pay attention to it. It's just fake bullshit. And at the same time, in the midst of all of this, you have these political forces in the Western world that are rising up, and these are types of political forces that we haven't seen gain so much momentum since the first half of the 20th century. And you see this not remarkable, well, it is remarkable in the sense that it's unheard of in our time. But you see this surreal occurrence transpiring, and you're wondering, what's going on here? You have, for example, the Freedom Party gaining the most votes in the most recent Austrian election. And the Freedom Party, at one point in time, was considered a fringe party, and they want to bring back the Reich. Andreas Molzer, one of their leaders, has made this very clear. They want to reunite Austria and Germany, and now they got all these votes. That's surreal. It's absolutely surreal, but you don't see mainstream conservative voices saying, this is serious, guys. This is scary. You see them just continuing the same trend that they've been doing for decades. And that is, let's attack the left, let's attack the liberals, let's attack the very same people that we've been attacking since forever. And people just go along with it. People just don't ever ask questions such as, what about the other side? Or are there other people that we should be wary of? Are there other political forces that we should be wary of? And they don't do that. They just want you to do the same thing over and over again. Let's attack these easy targets. Let's attack these targets that are obviously problematic. And there's more to it than that. That's why I don't really trust any famous voice online. Jordan Peterson, Murray, any of these guys. I don't trust them. Douglas Murray, and any of these people, because I always ask myself, how did this person get famous? Who does he know? Who are his handlers? I just don't trust any of them, because they don't look at the full picture. They don't say, yeah, the left is a problem, but there's other things that we should also worry about that's rising above the clouds. It's not the clouds, but it's rising above the fog. And we're seeing it in real time. So there's that. Yeah, you see it. You see the AFD. I mean, the AFD is a but they're basically a repackaged Nazi party. And they're growing tremendously. I mean, they are growing tremendously. And they're beating a lot of the mainstream parties. They're beating the Greens. They're beating a lot of these mainstream politicians in Germany. They got first place in first place in Thuringia, second place in Saxony, second place in Brandenburg. I mean, they are a major party now. And one of their leaders is very sympathetic to Nazism. And yes, absolutely. Short Farrell makes a good point. Elon Musk is a cult figure now. Absolutely. And he's talking about robots, buying a robot for tens of thousands of dollars so that it can clean up your house. I mean, guy, this is freaking crazy. And Elon Musk is into transhumanism. He wants to be able to download your consciousness into someone else's brain so that your consciousness will live forever. I mean, it's just a transhumanist cult. And what I find so strange is, for decades, conservatives have been worrying about transhumanism, but then they're revering Elon Musk when Elon Musk is a hardcore transhumanist and he's talking about robots, And what is the future of warfare? The future of warfare is robotics. It's AI. That is the future of warfare. And remember years ago when Elon Musk was saying, oh, I'm so worried about AI. I'm so worried about the future. I'm so scared of the future. And here he is. He's telling people now to go buy a robot to clean up your house. I mean, the guy who was... That's why I'm saying I never bought into any of this bullshit. If someone says, oh, Elon Musk, he's blowing the trumpet. He's trying to make the call. He's warning the world about the dangers of AI. But now he's telling people to go buy a robot to clean up your house. He's talking about downloading your consciousness into other people's brains. Just crazy shit like this, guys. Because it's all deception. See, people... It's amazing. Christians. All these Christians, Catholics, evangelicals, they're following all these big figureheads. Musk, Peterson, Murray. They're following all these big figureheads. And they don't ever look at that verse from the New Testament. Wolves in sheep's clothing. The most basic analogy about evil that's given to us in the New Testament. Wolves in sheep's clothing. What does that mean? A wolf that is cloaked as a sheep. So evil that is cloaked as something that's holy or something that's good and or righteous. This is how evil works. Evil is not going to... See, what they're trying to do is they just want to present to you the wolf. They say, look at these wolves. And we're sheep. We're right? We're sheep. Oh God, look at those wolves. And there's a few sheeps, there's a few sheep who know that there's some wolves in the flock who are dressed up as sheep. And they're saying, guys, there are wolves in sheep's clothing here amongst us. And one of the wolves that is in sheep's clothing is telling you, look at those wolves over there. Look at those wolves over there. Look at that wolf over there. Look at that wolf over here. Oh, God, wolf, wolf, wolf. And there's another sheep that's saying, guys, that sheep who's telling you about the wolves that are out in the open, he's actually a wolf. Oh, no, but he's telling us about the wolves. He's warning us about the wolves. He's telling us about the wolves. Oh, but he's warning us. He's saying facts. Yeah, I get he's saying facts, but he's a wolf himself. But he's right in your flock. He's right in your midst. He's gonna devour you. But the sheep don't care. They don't give a damn. Because they like this wolf. Because he looks like a sheep. And so they're falling for it all the time. They're falling for the bullshit. That's why I say, it's like, you have these Christians that are, oh God, I love this guy. Oh, he's so, and you say, he's a wolf. I love Peterson. I love Murray. I love this guy over here. He's great. This guy has a podcast. They're wolves. That's it. They're wolves. And you think they're sheep, but they're actually wolves dressed up as sheep. They're masquerading themselves. And this is the reality of the world. This is the world that we're living in, where they just want you to look at the wolves that are out in the open, but they don't want you to look at the sheeps that are dressed up as wolves. And I'm here to tell you guys, they're wolves in sheep's clothing. But who's listening to me? Almost nobody. You know, that's the sad reality. That's the sad reality. You know, you have this Douglas Murray guy who, oh, he's amazing. He's for the West. He's pro-West. He did a book called The Death of the West. But Murray is a member of what? He's a member of Sodom. And Murray has said that if the government doesn't get rid of this pro-Palestine rally, then the people will have to be called up. And it's going to be very brutal. And he's calling for violence. He's saying the people will have to be violent against people who are pro-Palestine. And you ask yourself, what the hell is happening? You have a guy who's calling for violence, but the right wing thinks he's great. You have Elon Musk talking about downloading people's consciousness and all this transhumanist cultic evil, but they think he's great because he allows for free speech in Twitter, unless you live in India, by the way. If you live in India, then Elon Musk's philosophy of free speech doesn't apply, because Elon Musk actually abides by the oppressive censorship laws that are being imposed by the Hindu nationalists. Like the Milo guy, exactly. Another great example. You have to stay vigilant. You have to stay vigilant. That's the bottom line. There's so much deception out there, guys. So much deception out there. It's ridiculous. It's a mass deception that is making the world drunk. And by drunk, I mean it is making the world do evil, or convincing the world that they must do evil, while making them think that they're going to do good. And Jesus warned about this. He said, there will be people who will kill you, thinking that they are doing God a service. You can say, well, that's the Muslims, and you would be right. But it's not just the Muslims. You have a lot of different people out there who want to do evil, thinking that they will do God a service. You have these radical rightists who claim to believe in God when they really believe in Satan and Lucifer. They're really members of the ranks of the abysmal world, and they want to kill, and they will call themselves Christians, just like those Englishmen in the 100 Years' War who would go into France and loot and pillage and rape, and they would go to mass, and they would say they're doing God a service. Or like the Nazis who would go to the Catholic Church or the Lutheran Church, and they would do massacres, and they thought that they were doing good. They thought they were doing good when they were doing evil. Or you have the Jewish extremists in Israel, the evil, demonic Jewish extremists in Israel. They want to build a third temple, and they want to cause bloodshed. They want to kill Arabs, they want to kill Christians, they want to kill Muslims, they want to butcher people. And you had that guy who is a politician in Israel, Bezalel Smotrich. He said recently that he wants to expand into Syria. He wants Israel to expand its territory into Syria, into Jordan, into Egypt. They want to take territory. And this is a part of what is now known as Judaism. And you can go back to the Judaism of Jesus' day, or the Judaism of Paul's day, and you will see that they were following a book called the War Scroll. And in the War Scroll, it says that the Jews will rise up and they will butcher all of humanity. They will destroy and exterminate all of humanity. And it says in the War Scroll, this is from the time of Paul, from the time around the time of Christ, even close to the time of Christ. It says in the War Scroll that first the Jews will defeat the Semitic peoples around them. They will defeat the Assyrians, the Arabs, the people of Mesopotamia. Then they will go against the children of Ham, the Hamites, the Africans. And for 10 years, they will exterminate the Hamitic people. Then, once the Hamites are done away with, then they will go to the sons of Japheth, the Europeans, and they will wipe out the Europeans. This is what it says in the War Scroll from around the 1st century. And then you hear an Israeli extremist politician saying, Israel has to expand here, it has to expand there, it has to expand here. It's like the same spirit that was alive at the time of Christ, the same abysmal, sinister spirit is there. It's right here amongst us, and it's growing. And then you have these evangelicals talking about, oh, we have to send money to Israel so they can build their third temple. And what's the point of a third temple? Amazingly, you have Protestants who sit there and they accuse other people. They accuse Catholics, or they accuse Eastern Orthodox people of being institutional and legalistic. And, oh, that's an institution. And I don't follow Christianity. I follow Jesus. I don't follow religion. I follow faith. But these are the same people, right? They'll say, "Oh, it's not about religion. It's about a relationship with God." And the Catholic Church is an evil institution, and blah blah blah. These are the same people who say we must help the Jews build the third temple. Well, who's institutional? Who's being institutional? Who's being legalistic? Who's following a religion here? When you want to help the Jews rebuild a temple that literally God destroyed. A temple of which Christ said, every single stone will fall down. And they will revere the city of Jerusalem, even though Christ said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, if only you were to follow me like chicks follow their mother and go under their mother's wing, but you have chosen not to follow me, so you will be devastated. And that's what happened. The devastation of Jerusalem, the devastation of the temple, the destruction of the temple. And Christ said, bring the temple down and I will rebuild it in 3 days. He was talking about himself. He was saying, if you kill me, I'm going to revive after 3 days. But then you have these very people who say we need to rebuild a temple. We need to rebuild the temple. But Christ is the temple. I thought you guys followed Jesus, not a religion. I thought you guys are not about religion, but about a relationship with Jesus, and that you want to rebuild the temple when Christ literally said that he is the temple. It makes zero sense. But there is deception throughout, and you have to be wary of it. Deception throughout, be it Christian Zionism, be it right-wing fanaticism, be it the modern-day state of Roman Catholicism. I mean, there's just massive deception. You have people who want you to think that the Pope is Orthodox, even though the Pope has said there's many different ways to Jesus. Hinduism brings us to God. Islam brings us to God. Judaism brings us to God, which is destruction, is evil. It's false. And Christ said, I am the way, and anyone who says that there is another way is a thief who comes to destroy and to kill and to steal. And you have Catholics who say, oh, no, the Pope is fine. He's fine. He's great. He's great. He's great. They don't follow the Pope of Rome. Well, they do follow the Pope of Rome, but they also follow the cope of Rome. They're coping all the time. They're coping all the time. And you have these big right-wing figureheads. They want you to just focus on the left, the woke left. But what about the other picture here? What about the rest of the picture? What about the rise of right-wing evil, right-wing fanaticism in Europe, right-wing fanaticism in Israel? Those that worship earthly Jerusalem are just worshiping another beast. I agreed. Absolutely agree. If the masses believe in something 10-1, it's on the wrong side. Absolutely. Absolutely. And even Jesus tells us this. He says, if men follow you, if too many people like you, you're doing something wrong. Satan, in the form of Archangel Gabriel, appeared in Muhammad's dream. Well, because Islam is a Christian heresy. It tries to come across as true Christianity. It's a heresy like Mormonism. I hate the Jews who say never again and do everything possible to make everyone hate them. Yeah. Well, you have Yishai Fleischer, a famous Jewish activist, who saw a video of a Norwegian Nazi giving the Sieg Heil. And he's like, oh, this is fine. The way is narrow. Absolutely. That's how I feel, guys. People say, yesterday somebody sent me an email. They said, what do you think of this guy? Somebody I never heard of. What was the name of the guy? Hold on, let me look up real quick. His last name is Cook. Bennett, was it Bennett Cook? Beckett Cook. That's the name of this guy. And somebody asked me about him yesterday. Somebody wrote me and said, hey, Ted, have you heard of this guy named Beckett Cook? And if so, what do you think of him? So I told him, I said, I've never heard of Beckett Cook. And this guy says to me, well, he's an ex-homosexual, former homosexual. And I said, listen, if he's saying something that's true, it's true, right? If truth is spoken, it's spoken. I said, but if you see any red flags, don't ignore them. So I took the time to watch a video of this guy, Beckett Cook, and he's got a podcast, 157 plus thousand subscribers. And I watched a little bit of him. And this guy says he's an ex-homosexual, but he's now, he's found the Lord. But you watch him talking in his podcast, and he's still talking like he's a member of Sodom. You know, oh, hi, and blah, 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 and all this crap. And I'm thinking, this guy, I don't trust this guy as far as I can spit. So I wrote this dude, and I said, I don't trust this guy at all. He still talks like he's a member of Sodom. And the guy said, yeah, I recognize that. I mean, there's just so much of this deception nowadays. Oh, this guy is, what do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? It's like, well, look at the red flags.